Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining my session on a Saturday. I hope you have so far enjoyed the online conference and you've gotten a lot to take back to your classrooms and your schools. The best part of my day is always getting to spend time with teachers. While I can't actually see all of you, I appreciate you giving up some of your Saturday to come find out and learn about Expeditions. I'm Jennifer Holland. I am the program manager for Expeditions and Classroom and Forms. And I'm going to talk a little bit today about Expeditions, not necessarily get into all the details of the hardware and all of that, but just kind of give you some examples of how teachers globally are using Expeditions and just how transformative it has been for learning. If you have any questions at all along the way, please feel free to ask them on the Education on Air website. I will go through and make sure I leave plenty of time for questions. That's usually the most interesting part. So for those of you who are just learning about Expeditions for the first time, Expeditions is a new app that we designed that basically, allows anyone with a smartphone, a VR viewer, and a tablet to explore all over the place. So you can go underwater, you can go to space, you can go inside museums. The idea is to create an immersive experience for your students. And to give you a little background on why we created Expeditions, so like I mentioned, I'm on the classroom team. And one of the things that we do as a product team is we build products alongside teachers and students. So I spent every day for a long time in classrooms with teachers and students as we were building and designing Classroom. And one of the key things that I kept hearing from teachers over and over again was, hey, I would love to find a way to create immersive experiences for my students. Are there any tools that you know of? Fast forward, and my team basically participated in what's called a hackathon. And for those of you that don't know what a hackathon is, it's basically an opportunity to form a mini team and compete against your coworkers. And a few of us got together. It was actually, ironically, right during the time when we were trying to launch the Classroom mobile apps, just before the holidays. It was a little crazy. And we had 36 hours to come up with an idea. And a few of us, myself included, who are former teachers, said, hey, let's see if we can take the new Cardboard platform, which was our new VR platform that was announced at Google I/O in the spring of 2014, and said, what if we took that platform, which is this super immersive experience, and we took the 360-degree imagery that makes up Street View and Google Earth, and what if we put that together with a team that really understands teachers and students, who has been inside the classroom day in and day out designing Classroom? What would that look like? And so fast forward, we built Expeditions. And ironically, we haven't veered too far away from our actual initial prototype during that hackathon. And we have been really excited just with the level of enthusiasm and the creativity that teachers literally globally have been experiencing. So I'm going to walk you through right now. You're going to see some slides. And again, if you have questions, please don't hesitate to ask them on the site. So let me pull up my slides, which you'll see here in a second. And then, so this is actually what Expeditions looks like. So it'll just take a second to load. But it's basically our first large-scale solution for VR in the classroom. And like I mentioned, it's available to any school, and really all you need is a smartphone, a VR viewer, and a teacher tablet. And classes can literally teleport all over the world. This happens to be Mount Fuji. And all of these Expeditions are collections of linked virtual reality VR content. And they have short descriptions and points of interest, which make it really easy for teachers to be able to incorporate it into the existing technology that they're already using. So as we thought about designing Classroom, there were kind of 5 key principles that we wanted to stick to as a team. And these, again, were, things that we identified from piloting Classroom and Chromebooks and just working alongside teachers and students. We knew that VR would be engaging, but the history of technology in schools is littered with solutions that don't quite actually work in schools. And because we have a lot of experience, we said, out of the gate, this product needs to be very easy to use. So to prevent troubleshooting and headaches, Expeditions can be downloaded so that no Wi-Fi is actually needed. We knew that school bandwidth is rather rough for some schools. Some schools don't have connectivity at all. And all you need to do is be able to enable the teacher's tablet to be used in such a way as it operates like a local server. And Expeditions remains connected to all the viewing devices. So you can use a local peer-to-peer network. You could use your school Wi-Fi as long as it's enabled to peer-to-peer network. Or you could use a tethering option on a phone. So this means that so long as the materials are cast on the tablet, everyone can go on the Expedition, and it really doesn't matter where you're based. We've taken Expeditions to rural Amazonas in Brazil. We've taken it to different countries in Africa that haven't had connectivity and have been really excited with how well the technology has worked. The second piece is that it's a social experience. Expeditions are intended to be a group activity. Teachers act as the guide, and they can take their class of explorers through videos and 3D images and these 360-degree panoramas, and really be able to point things out that are interesting and ask questions to their students. The explorers, so the students, experience Expedition together. And so what we find is that just the level of interactivity and engagement among students is so high, and kids want to point things out that they're discovering together. And so this is, when we think about VR tends to be thought of as like kind of this individual siloed experience, but Expeditions is quite the opposite. It is that group experience. Accessible. So Expeditions it's a free app. You can download it on Android or iOS. You are more than happy to download it right now. You can go to our Expeditions website and you'll see links for both Android and iOS. And VR really isn't just for techies. Some of the teachers we met didn't even think VR applied to them, but when they saw the level of engagement from their students, they were immediately hooked. And then accessible. So Expeditions is a free app, and again, it needs to work alongside the existing content. And as part of that, it's not meant to be a replacement. And I think that's just like a really important thing. I was on a panel the other night and someone asked if this was replacing textbooks. And it's quite the opposite. It's an enhancement. It helps bring to life the content that you're already teaching. And we've also, worked with a number of teachers and education partners to create content that are, again, lesson plans so teachers can easily incorporate it. And those are all on the TES website, which you can also find on our website. And then finally, it's a shared resource. So when I was in school, I sort of equate it to the equivalent of rolling a VCR and TV into the classroom. It's not necessarily intended to be one-to-one. The kits themselves are great for sharing across classrooms, and it makes them really practical and scalable because you can share devices. And I'm gonna just quickly show you this picture. This is actually, this is taken from actually a real class in the Bronx. This teacher teaches about the wonders of Machu Picchu. And the teacher had used it for years. The students in this case had to sort of imagine that they were these archaeologists that had just come upon Machu Picchu. But these little pictures that are often found on worksheets and in textbooks were what was representative of Machu Picchu, one of the greatest wonders of the world. And it really forces the students to rely on, their imagination. Now, imagine if you took the same experience and you had it look like this. What's great about this is that, kids got the experience to see firsthand what it was like to come upon Machu Picchu and just the majesty of the experience. And so it creates just a much more, it creates a 360-degree panorama, and this is just one example, so you're kind of floating up above Machu Picchu. And, so the tool has just been an incredible, it creates an incredible amount of immersive and experiences for students. It also has just a ton of informative content, and we found that the greatest engagement around expeditions happens when students become active participants in their own learning, as opposed to sitting back and passively participating. And you can see just the smiles on these kids' faces and the level of engagement. This was actually from our pilot, and these students got to use expeditions over and over again. And it wasn't about the technology, it was about being able to experience places that would be otherwise inaccessible. So in just one school year, which was last school year, we took expeditions to over 1 million students across 11 countries. And it was part of our Pioneer program. And we announced this fall that we brought the Pioneer program back to the UK, where we also have a commitment to help bring over 1 million students, UK students, on an expedition. And the biggest piece of feedback that we got over and over and over again from teachers is that this tool was by far the most engaging and transformational tool that they had in their toolkit. It allowed for students to visit places that maybe time and safety and geographic distance make virtually impossible. And this is just, again, a quick, I'll kind of skim through this, but this is a view of the app. There's just an enormous amount of content. Initially we thought expeditions was about taking students to the most majestic places, letting them explore Mount Everest or the Himalayas, or, going inside the White House. And what we really found was that it was so much more. We have over 400 expeditions. And so you really can use expeditions to bring historical moments to life, or give insight into what someone's job looks like, and get to really explore different places. So I'm going to give you a few examples of how expeditions has been used in the classroom. This was actually, so the photo that you see on my slide right now is actually of Ellis Island. So one New York school in Long Island who actually had participated in the expeditions program, takes all their 4th grade students to Ellis Island every year. So the 4th grade teachers decided that they were going to use expeditions. They were part of the beta, so they had been using expeditions for a while, and they were going to take their students on the Ellis Island expedition prior to the field trip. And teachers were curious to see what those students' reaction would be when they actually visited the island. Would they be bored? Would doing the expedition beforehand ruin the excitement for the day? No, not at all. And in fact, one of the guides from Ellis Island told us that they had never seen students so excited, or felt that the students felt that they were experts. I mean, kids were literally getting off the boat and running to the locations that they had discovered during the expedition. And one of the really interesting things and sort of aha moments that we had was that, when we go and create these expeditions, there are a lot of rooms that are actually not open to the general public, and that's because they're preserved rooms. And with heavy foot traffic, it could ruin the rooms. And so what expeditions allowed was students to go behind the scenes, in particular cases on this Ellis Island expedition, and they got to see firsthand what it was like to be in those rooms. And so, they would turn to the guide, at Ellis Island and explain what was in those rooms, and, be like, oh, well, I was in there. And so, the teachers themselves just reported this stark difference between students that had gone on the expedition and gone to Ellis Island versus those that just went to Ellis Island. It was like night and day for them. Having that baseline of information and a connection to their, a connection in general made their real world experience so much more meaningful and impactful. The other piece of content that we have is around just the environment. So one of the things that we have seen is that expeditions really helps engage students with particular subjects and kind of get a deeper level of understanding. And so in this example, we actually have an expedition of Kruger National Park in South Africa. And so the students in a class in London were actually able to completely immerse themselves in this safari park. They were learning about environments, and that week had been about the safari. And this teacher, again, had used this lesson over and over again, and one of the things that the students had to do was create a postcard. And historically, students just kind of wrote about the animals and that were there, and that was fine. When students had gone on the expedition, they basically, the teacher had mentioned that the actual writing was of a much higher standard than it was before the expedition, because they went much more deeply into the environment. They described it. They talked about, why certain animals act the way they do, because they could see the surroundings. And it totally transformed, again, the lesson. Current events is another area of content that we have, and we've been working with Associated Press and Getty Images to create a number of these expeditions. And I think one of the things that is most powerful about current events is that it gives students the opportunity to discover some of the realities surrounding real global events without the usual barriers of time, safety, or distance. And this example that you see on the slide is actually an expedition of Ebola and the eradication of it in Sierra Leone. And we worked with a partner in the UK called DFID and sent a camera. And what was amazing about this expedition was that, one, it really captured everything that was going on in Sierra Leone at the time. And it was, an incredible teaching moment, but often difficult for teachers to convey what was happening. And so it allowed teachers and students to have just a deeper understanding of what the social justice issues that were happening. What was also really interesting is that a lot of healthcare providers have also used this expedition to train future doctors and nurses to be prepared about the environment that they were going into. And many of them actually tweaked their techniques and practices based on what they saw, which was an incredible learning opportunity to know that for us as a product team, to know that Expeditions was being used beyond the classroom as an educational tool. And the next one is about careers. And we know that, kids dream about what they want to be when they grow up, but those dreams are often built around the few professional people that they know are in their lives. And we know that getting exposure to careers is really an important part of the learning process through internships. But what happens if students don't have access to internships or mentors? So we've been building a number of career expeditions that show kids the ins and outs of careers that they might never learn about. And so these expeditions reveal what professionals like about their jobs, what they studied in school, how they apply their knowledge to their work. And oftentimes we already know that regular field trips can be logistically challenging, and they rarely focus on careers. But with expeditions, teachers can share an experience with students right in the classroom. You can't fit 30 students into a cockpit of a plane, but you can get a virtual reality tour of one using expeditions. And you can relate that to the different content that you're teaching in your classes. And finally, culture, which is a huge component of the content that we have. Our goal with expeditions goes beyond creating engaging and immersive experiences for students. For us, sometimes expeditions can actually be used as a catalyst for nurturing new levels of cultural understanding. And as students have talked in great detail about when we've gone and visited classes, that experience of being able to see each other's culture, to be able to go and see their parents' hometown, or maybe a child has just arrived in a new country and be able to show their peers where they came from. That is such a profound experience, and so many kids don't get that opportunity. And one of the things that we feel so important about is really enabling that experience to happen, because hopefully students get a better understanding of their environment and their peers, and become much more understanding. When you get to see firsthand and you get to know somebody, your perceptions and your biases are totally changed. And so that's one thing that we feel very important, is an important part of expeditions is that culture piece. And so that basically, I'm going to leave plenty of time for questions, but that's basically Expeditions in a nutshell. And there are plenty of resources that you can actually learn about. So there's a Getting Started with Expeditions. That is a whole page on our website. So that's www.google.com/edu/expeditions. You can go onto the Best Buy Education website. There is a great page which has all the information for the kits, and you can learn about what different hardware options. There's also our Help Center, which is very detailed. I personally wrote most of it. So it has step-by-step for how to get started, how to build your own kits. And I highly, highly, highly recommend joining our G+ community. It's one of the more active communities that we have, and it's just been awesome to see all of the comments and examples and questions and best practices that teachers globally have and help one another out. So I definitely recommend joining that. So with that, I'm going to go to take some questions. So let me just pull up the list of questions. So I'm just going to kind of scroll down. So Expeditions is a wonderful app. Is there a plan to make a low-cost VR headset that can function independent of a phone or computer, or have it work with a Chromebook? So there are a couple of ways that you can actually use Expeditions. So one is you actually don't need to go out and buy devices. If you already have an Android tablet or an iPad, you can use Expeditions in what's called full screen mode. And we've actually seen a ton of schools download the app and experience Expeditions that way. It's just, you basically hold up your device and you look around 360. We ran a number of pilots with that and saw very much the same level of engagement and excitement, especially if students aren't aware, of what VR is. Of course, with a VR viewer, Expeditions really comes to life. It's much more immersive. Right now, we're really focused on, helping schools identify devices, use the current devices, or they can go and purchase a kit with Best Buy. And that's kind of where we're at right now. Let's see. We create our own expeditions. That's a great question. So there are a few things, and I love to explain this because I don't think people often think about all of the complexities of actually building it. So we actually work with partners globally to create expeditions. Like I mentioned, we have over 400 expeditions tied to a variety of different locations and subjects. And what we found is that the quality of the panorama and what you take matters tremendously. If you have 300 degrees of a panorama that are absolutely spectacular, and then just a small portion of that panorama has any sort of blemish or stitching artifacts, it takes completely away from the experience. So what we've been focused on is trying to create as many expeditions as possible, and allowing teachers to be able to toggle between different expeditions to teach a subject. Eventually, as the camera technology catches up, and you can use cardboard camera, you could upload or use a Ricoh Theta camera and upload to YouTube or Street View. It's definitely something that is most requested. We're really interested in making it happen. We just want to make sure that it is a quality experience for both the teacher and the student. Does anyone have good resources for VR in an informal learning settings, specifically patient education? I don't have anything that I can recommend. There are a lot of online communities around VR. VR is like a hot topic area. We found that actually Expeditions is one of the most scalable education VR apps out there. Like I mentioned, we have the G+ community. We have seen Expeditions used in hospitals, both for children and adults, and we just, the hospital has been, there's been a number of hospitals that have used VR for patient experiences. And obviously the doctors and physicians are the experts there. But of course, it allows kids and adults to visit places outside of the hospital, which can be a nice reprieve. Headsets are available. Again, we put all the specs, so if you want to build a DIY kit, or if you want to, use existing devices, we put the specs of what you need in a device on our Help Center. So if you just Google the Expeditions Help Center, you'll find all of the details. It's really important to follow those specs. I can tell you, because I've been watching the community, that some folks are trying to find low-end devices, which I completely understand. But if you do not have the specs that we say are important, then you're going to have a pretty crummy experience using the VR headset, and it might not even work at all. So definitely make sure that you are following those guidelines. Is there a search feature for Expeditions? So yeah, there actually is. So that was one of the top feature requests that we got, and I didn't mention this earlier, but in the app, there is a button called Send Feedback. That actually goes directly to me, and I read, and I take this very seriously. It's the same, I do the same thing on Classroom, so if you've been using Classroom, you know that we read feedback, every single piece of it. This was one of the most requested things. So you can actually search in the app and be able to see the different tours and explore. I mean, we also have a spreadsheet that's linked off of our website that has a little bit more detail about the different expeditions, and that has the whole catalog of expeditions. Just scrolling down. I love Katie McNara's comment about using VR with family members. We've actually seen a number of teachers assign expeditions for homework. And so the student would have to guide their whole family on an expedition and then come back and share their experience in class. We also see a number of teachers turn the reins over for students, which is also amazing to see. The students become an expert in a specific topic area, and then the student actually leads the expedition, which is awesome. It's a great way to practice presentations and kind of get kids over the fear of presenting, especially because kids can't see, if you're in cardboard, you can't see them. So it takes away a little bit of that intimidation. So it's a great tool for public speaking. See, I'm just kind of scrolling through. A lot of folks are asking about just the search feature. It's just in the top part of the actual Expeditions app. So unfortunately, we're out of time, but I just wanted to say thank you so much again for spending time. Please join our community. Please try the app. Let us know what you think. Like I said, we work alongside teachers and students every step of the way. We're not going to design anything that isn't what our community wants. And so just really looking forward to working with all of you to create these immersive experiences for students globally. Hope you have a great day. Bye.